We started off the day with a really long strategy session. We talked about the future of Clara's woodshop, our laser cutting business, and most importantly, how we were going to accomplish what we wanted with both and at the same time, be happy. After figuring out a possible answer, we went into the woodshop to get some work done. Clara pushed onward with her current project, which is a birdhouse, and got to the point of making a bunch of tiny slats for the windows and glued them all up. On my end, I am creating a drink coaster. My goal right now is to create 30 different coasters, and this one is an idea that I'd had for a long time. If you know who it is, let me know in the comments. At the start of the day, I spent a lot of time rethinking the design. I felt like the lines were too busy, and I didn't like the power settings I used either. There were some inconsistent cuts, and I had to do a lot of the cutting by hand. And when you're using a laser, that isn't necessarily a good thing because you'll be left with an inconsistent edge. The design was also too intricate, which made it so that some of the details ended up getting burned off. I adjusted the design and spent a long time tinkering around with the power settings. After figuring some things out, I went back to adjust some of the overly intricate details, adjusted the power settings again, and created a new cut with all of the new information. This one turned out a lot better. On Clara's end, she ended up using the laser cutter too. Unlike what I'm doing, she was doing some more advanced level stuff. She first laser cut a jig so she could do some laser cutting at an angle, which is just freaking ridiculous. And afterwards, put the entrance hole and box together and put together a roof structure that she also laser cut. And before the day was completely over, she also got started on a roof part with the shaper origin. While Clara continued her work on the shaper, I was making some final adjustments to the coaster design, trying a different type of transfer tape, and making some more tweaks to the power settings. You can see here how it should be when everything cuts well. Everything on this piece ended up being a success. I applied multiple layers of finishing to this one and the one I made before this, just so I had more samples to run tests with. And while they cured, I did a little bit of video editing for Clara and began to work on a new coaster design. On Clara's end, not only was she able to finish cutting all of her pieces, she also glued them together and did some hand chiseling work to cut out these notches. When our workday was over, we rushed quickly over to do some grocery shopping, and while Clara was getting ready for bed, I decided to try to get a few more things done before it was my turn. I did a water resistance test, which worked out perfectly, and I added rubber feet to the bottom. While Clara continued her hand tool work, I had a little photo shoot session with the coaster I just finished. After that, I went back to the drawing board to work on another coaster idea I had, and after drawing it and turning it into a vector, I showed it to Clara to see what she thought. Her reaction, let's just say, made me decide that I hated it, and I went back to the drawing board to make another one from scratch. This one turned out much better, don't you think? On Clara's end, not only did she glue the mustache things to a beam, she began to work on what I think are some roof panels. And at the end of her workday, she spent a lot of time looking at the birdhouse to figure out what her next steps were going to be. And while she was getting ready for bed, I once again snuck in a little bit more work, cutting out the jack-o'-lantern design I'd made and giving the bottom layer a quick spray paint. I started Thursday with a little bit of sketching. It was a rest day from working out, and instead of just relaxing, I had this sort of itch to try and sketch out an idea that I had. Clara continued with some detail work on her birdhouse and painted some of the parts with some Indian ink. In her spare time, she even helped me sand the layer that I'd spray painted yesterday night, and afterwards, after giving it another coat of spray paint, I went ahead and drew out another spur-of-the-moment idea. I felt like I was on fire, so not only did I finish drawing it, I glued up the jack-o'-lantern from yesterday and was even able to turn the design that I just finished into a vector too. For the rest of the day, we went over to Mobility Lift Aids to hang out with our friends there. After a long week of hard work, Clara and I made our way over to Galveston to test out two ideas. Number one, spending one day a week as a mandatory break day, and number two, biking. We started our biking journey from 61st Street near the beach, all the way down to the end of the island. From there, we turned right and biked all the way to the very end of the tiny piece of land that jutted out. At one point, we passed an area of sand where lots of vehicles were getting stuck. But we made this journey specifically because we thought it'd be fun to do and because we thought that there was going to be a pink dolphin statue there. We ended up not finding much of anything there, and afterwards, we biked the long journey back, totaling about 17 to 18 miles of riding, and then drove home to eat before passing out. This week overall was incredibly productive. The coaster I made is now listed online, bringing my total live products to 2. By the end of the week, I hope to have a lot more. As for Clara, I have been blown away at how fast she's been working. And of course, by all of her crazy techniques. I'm pretty sure she's going to be done with the birdhouse next week too. As for our Galveston trip, I'll have to say that we both realized how much we enjoy biking. It was hard work, we were both very sweaty and tired by the end of it, but it was also extremely fulfilling. Having one day a week to do something as fulfilling as that really rounded everything out for us. We got our workaholic jitters out the way and also got to experience and see a lot of new sights. Biking just seems to be this way to see a lot of different things really quickly. Not quite as fast as a car and not quite as slow as hiking. We still have a lot to tweak with our gear setup, but we are both very excited now to not only crush the next week, but to prepare for our next adventure.